Tonight Show. We have certified plastic surgeon, Dr. Daniel Kaufman. And now for your host, KoolKard. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kickin with KoolKard show. I am your host, KoolKard. Thank you guys for tuning in. If this is your first time, like I always say, I invite you to subscribe, tell a friend to come and see your boy. And we just kicking it over here, man. I bring on great influential guests who bring on some good nuggets, some good value. And just give you the game, free game, man. And listen, I ask nothing of you. Just show up. But it's something here for all of you guys, all right? We're on episode 200. Listen, we're almost at 300 episodes, guys. So there's something here on this platform that can help you along the way. So please tell a friend, share it. It's all love. I do this for you. Can't do it without you. All right. Tonight, I have board certified plastic surgeon, Dr. Daniel Kaufman, joining me. This was going to be a treat. It's a rise in the whole BBLs, plastic surgery thing. He's going to talk all about it. He's going to tell us everything we need to know about it. I know a lot of people have questions. They probably heard about it. They thought about it. They want to know more about it. They're scared to do it. They want to do it. Well, if there's any myths to be bust, he's going to bust them. He's going to give you the truth. He's going to give you the facts because this is what this man does daily. So let's tap in with him. I can't wait for this conversation. Let's get it, y'all. Yes, welcome to the show, Dr. Daniel Kaufman, board certified plastic surgeon. Man, I know you got a lot to talk about, brother, and I got questions for you. I know a lot of us have questions because it's a phenomenon right now. Everybody's doing it, or everybody's thinking about doing it, or they heard about it, right? There's a bunch of myths out there. We've heard about some tragedies from the operations, from the surgeons, things like that. So we got questions, right? But yeah, so I'm thankful that you're on the show. I know you're going to bring a wealth of knowledge and you can educate us. But yeah, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I forgot to ask you this. I don't know if you've seen my show, but I do pray before every conversation. Are you okay with that?
Say again, you do?
I pray before every conversation.
Amen. God bless. No, I love it.
Okay, good. I know everybody's faith is not the same, so I like to ask, like to be respectful, but I do pray before every conversation, and we kick it off and we go. So, all right.
God bless.
Let's do that. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we just want to thank you for today. We want to thank you for this platform. We want to thank you for Dr. Daniel's availability to come on here and share his wealth of knowledge, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, and his skill and his set of skills, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, and his talents, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, because it truly is a talent, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus. You have blessed him. Lord Jesus, we just pray and ask you just continue blessing us, blessing our family, shining a light down on us, just keeping us, Lord Jesus. We want to give you all the victory, all the glory, all the love, all the praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 God bless.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. So listen, we want to talk about what we came over here to talk about, right? But I do like to humanize the conversation because you're not just a surgeon. You are a man. You're a human being. So I like to take it back just a little bit. Give us a little background where you're from so we can understand how you got to where you are right now. All right. I just like to humanize it a little bit. So if you can just give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. I guess I was born in Israel. Came to the United States as a young child. I have two older brothers. My whole family. We moved to New York right about probably 1990 is when we came in, and I was a young boy. I was living in New York for many years. I did all my education in New York. I went to medical school in New York. I did my general surgery residency there. I did my plastic surgery fellowship in New York, and I started a private practice there as well. I lived there for many years and did a lot of good work. And then in the past few years, right around probably around 2021, is when my wife and I we came down to Miami. I live and work in Miami now. I have three young children, and I'm a family man. You could say I'm a God fearing man. That's for sure. I pray on the daily, and I appreciate the prayer to start this conversation. And yeah, and I love what I do for a living. It's just a pleasure. It's a sheer joy. There's an old quote out there by an ancient Chinese philosopher, and he said, "Do what you love for a living, and you'll never work a day in your life."
Absolutely.
So I live by that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to live, with that quote kind of coming to life in my life actually. And it's I have a wonderful job. I get to help people look and feel their best. I get to be a part of their health journey through life. I deal with lots of different kinds of problems that I offer creative solutions for all kinds of different people. And yeah, and I just love what I do. And plastic surgery has been a blessing in my life. And thank God that I found this career to it. I took the long route here, that's for sure. A really long time to get to be here and do what I do on a daily basis. But God bless. It's all good. And yeah, I'm ready to talk about whatever aspect of plastic surgery, medicine, health maintenance, all these things. Shoot.
Yeah, so let's start from the core of it. Because what a lot of people don't know or don't even take into consideration, I believe, is that plastic surgery wasn't always just BBLs, breast jobs, things of that nature. Like you're really helping people with their health. You're correct. It's corrective surgery. People are dealing with abnormalities, right? You're fixing them. You're making them. You're giving them a better quality of life. So it wasn't all of this heightened cultural BBL, breast job, lipo, all that type of stuff. Can you talk about like the origination of it and how you came, like when you started out? Can you tell us what it looked like then and what it's now is
Yeah.
and what it's being promoted as?
Plastic surgery has a long and very very complex history. It goes back several thousands of years, and in the modern era of surgery, plastic surgery has always been a little bit difficult to define. The word plastic in Latin, if you go back to the origin of it, it means change. And we're typically, a plastic surgeon. You can get, nine of my best friends in the room, all 10 board certified plastic surgeons, and you can find 10 completely different careers on their hands. So, yeah, typically people think of, obviously, as you said, the BBLs and the cosmetic breast surgery like breast augmentations or nose job, rhinoplasties, and many other things. Obviously, these days, it's just tremendous the things that we can do, from facial rejuvenation for aging to hair transplants to to all these other kinds of cosmetic surgeries which people see online. But the truth is that plastic surgery is so much more than that in terms of the reconstructive elements that it can provide to patients. I'll give you a few examples. Let's say this is a big area in plastic surgery is reconstructive breast surgery after breast cancer, or for breast deformities, let's say, from many different reasons.
Yeah.
Another example would be cleft lips and palates on young children who, because of developmental problems, they're not able to, let's say, suckle on the breast and feed themselves. And there's lots of problems that that can arise from that, obviously, and that affects a person's life completely. And it would be a plastic surgeon who would be working on that cleft lip and palate and so forth. And we could go down the gamut. I mean, you name it. There's always kind of a way to involve the plastic surgeon if we're talking about restoration of health of the form and function of the body. We're talking about reconstruction of limbs, the abdominal wall, when there's a lot of let's say general surgery of the abdomen. There's so many aspects to plastic surgery. You can basically boil it down to the big two limbs would be reconstructive, let's say the plastic surgery that you would do for a medical indication, or cosmetic or aesthetic surgery, which you would do just to improve the quality of life, the mental health of the person. Now, it's easy to dichotomize between those two in words, but in practice, in the reality of it, the lines are so gray when you mix them up. And I'll give you a classic example. This is one of my areas of expertise. Let's say you're obese. Let's say you weigh 400 pounds, and you've decided once and for all to lose that weight. So you do, let's say, a gastric bypass, or you take the recent GLP-1 medications, the Ozempic or Wegovy, or you do, let's say, a bariatric endoscopic procedure for weight loss, like let's say an endoscopic sleeve. That's a new thing that's come up, or even plain old diet and exercise. Now you lose a whole bunch of weight, 100, 150, 200, or even more pounds. And now, unfortunately, you are left with sagging folds of skin that's been damaged by life, by obesity, by the stretching of it. And now life is so difficult. People think that once you lose the weight, everything is hunky dory, but it's not. You have to deal with the massive folds of sagging skin everywhere, around the torso of the body, in the abdomen, in the back, the arms, the thighs, the breasts. And it makes life very difficult. You have to constantly gather and pull, and yeah, people are ashamed to go to the gym even, or be outside, or wear any kind of revealing clothing, not to mention the problems that you can have from a hygiene perspective, and get chronic skin infections and inflammation. And all that brings people down so much that, unfortunately, I've had the experience of dealing with patients that regret their weight loss because of so many of those problems that we just described, with the excess skin that remains in the wake of weight loss. And that's a very sad thing, because because of that discouragement, because of that disappointment, and the difficulties after weight loss, so many people regain the weight, and unfortunately even worse than before. And that ultimately makes them unhealthy. So now, when you come to a plastic surgeon after you lost 100 pounds, and I'm able to do a body lift, a tummy tuck, a breast lift, arm lift, thigh lift, well, what is that? Is that cosmetic? Well, sure, you look a lot better, but it's also reconstructive, because it helps you restore your life. It helps you be more active and do the very things that we ask you to do in order to maintain that weight loss and improve your health habits. And that's where plastic surgery gets into that gray zone that I was describing earlier, is that, it's not necessarily just cosmetic or reconstructive. So much of plastic surgery is a mix of the two. And that's why it's, plastic surgery is just an integral part of healthcare. And definitely, as we come up in the next few years, of course, obesity is a rampant problem worldwide. And along with it, we're going to see a lot of weight loss and a lot of plastic surgery problems that need to be solved.
Wow. You know what? I realize that because I've seen people, with the folds and all that. But you just don't think about that journey, right? Because you have
Yeah.
some people out here that are cruel, like, oh, you just need to lose weight. But it's more intricate than that. Like you said, they can lose the weight, but then what? They're still not having a good quality of life. Like they, and let me ask you this: so they lose the weight, so like vitals may be better, or am I thinking about that right? Vitals
Yeah.
may be
So
better, but
there's many physiological parameters that we can look at that improve immensely with weight loss. We can look at your blood pressure, your sugar control in your blood. There are different blood markers. Let's say maybe some people in the audience, at least the ones who deal with diabetes or have family members who have diabetes. There's a marker called the H1C, the hemoglobin A1C. Sorry, which is a marker of how well your body is managing your blood sugar in the long term. That improves tremendously with weight loss. I mean, there's so many problems that can be solved, medical problems that can be solved with weight loss. I keep saying that every doctor is going to have to deal with obesity, no matter whether you're a cardiologist, a gastroenterologist, or a rheumatologist. Obesity just hits so many different aspects of our overall health. So when we lose the weight, yes, we can see a tremendous physiological improvements in all the different biomedical markers that we can measure in the lab. But beyond that, the mental health aspects, the mental health improvement, the quality of life, the sheer sanity that you can restore to your life when you've taken control and you finally managed to lose the weight, and not just that, but to keep the weight. I talk about my weight loss patients in terms of being, just the best patients that I've ever had in medicine, because so many of them offer me such inspirational stories. We get into it in my preoperative assessments and my consultations, and it's just amazing how much adversity people have to overcome in order to get to that weight loss and achieve, and not only achieve it, but maintain it for the duration of your lifetime. For the vast majority of people who are dealing with overweight and obesity, it's a lifelong struggle, and it's something that as doctors we have to support. We have to be able to offer the right kind of help, and not just put it off and say, oh, you need more diet and exercise. Of course, everybody knows those kind of platitudes and just words that sometimes it seems so empty.
Yeah.
If we offer the actual support to people to help them in improving not only their their health habits, but just their approach to life, the way that they view their daily caloric consumption and their daily energy expenditure needs. And it's just it's a big problem. And as I said, every doctor is involved, especially the plastic surgeon, who has to deal with so much of the those problems that we discussed
Right.
after weight loss.
So is there anything that can be done during the journey of losing the weight so that it's not so there's not so many folds or loose skin? Like if you're losing the weight and actively in the gym like every single day or every other day or every week, can that kind of minimize the
Well, so here's the thing. Yeah. So there's no pill, there's no exercise for the skin. I always talk about the skin in terms of being the largest organ in the body, and the body that actually, and the organ rather, that takes the most amount of damage from the environment and from life. Think about it. The skin is the organ that's always in contact with the environment, and there aren't too many areas in the body where you can say that there's constant exposure out there. Even we close our eyes, we close our mouth, but the skin is always out there and exposed. So there aren't any things that we can do in that regard. However, no exercises in the gym for the skin. However, we can talk about the different things that contribute to the overall health, that's part of skin health. So that means no smoking, avoiding of smoking ever. If you have smoked before, now is the time to quit. If you've quit, make sure you don't go back. If you're around smokers, stay away from interactions there, or at least interactions where there's a closed space, and you're going to be exposed to the toxins there. Sun damage, that's another thing that we know, that's a thing that obviously affects the skin in a profound way. So there's ways to mitigate that. Beyond that, there's all kinds of different things that we do in our daily lives that improve our health and the condition of our immune systems, in terms of our diet, our mental health, things like that. They're very indirect in their effect, but that's what you would have to do in order to be the best, in the best physiological condition. And along with that, you'll probably have the best skin response to the weight loss. Now, whatever the skin's going to do is going to do. You can't control your genetics after all.
right?
However much damage, how long you've been obese also is, contributes to that. If you've been obese for 20, 30 years, surely that's going to create more damage to the skin than if
Right.
you've, gotten there because of, some life event, and, it was a recent dip into, heavier weights. But again, there's so many things that you can't control. Whatever the skin's going to do, it's going to do. And beyond that, the damaged skin is in the realm of reconstructive and cosmetic, of course. Bariatric plastic surgery, or what we're talking about essentially, is post massive weight loss body contouring surgery.
Okay. You mentioned something about a sleeve procedure. Can you explain that? I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
You were
so the stomach is an organ within the abdominal cavity. I know people kind of point to their abdomen and always say, "Oh, that's my stomach," but it's actually an organ that's inside the abdominal cavity, and it's the organ that accepts the food that we swallow, and goes down obviously from the mouth and through the esophagus, which is that swallowing tube in our neck and in our chest. Now, the stomach obviously starts the process of digestion, and the food proceeds from the stomach that we and down the small intestine and then large intestine, where absorption and all those kind of things related to digestion and the function of the gastrointestinal systems are. Now, the stomach can be manipulated to create an effect of weight loss. Typically, the procedure that people would say or would mean when they talk about the sleeve would be a procedure where that stomach, which is actually in the form of a pouch, and people can look it up on the internet, you can see what the actual form of the stomach is. But when you take away that outside part of the pouch, you can make the pouch of the stomach into a tube or a sleeve. So, what that does is it prevents you from eating more. It's basically a sort of restriction of the caloric intake or consumption,
Right.
and it affects weight loss. Now, a bariatric surgeon, which is a specialized general surgeon, would be the one who would be performing the procedure. And we mentioned earlier, back when I started, this procedure wasn't really around so much. It was very theoretical, and
Okay.
very few people were performing it. And I'm an old guy in the business here. And I remember the procedure coming up, and more people started doing it. The advent of advancements in technology in the general sense, and specifically, I'm thinking of laparoscopic surgery, which is surgery that's done not with big incisions where the surgeon puts their hands inside your body. Sorry to get so graphic if somebody gets a little queasy now in the audience, but when the surgeon does that, it's a very invasive procedure these days, and we can do that in a minimally invasive way, meaning we take trocars, or these ports, which are devices that allow other long metal instruments into the abdominal cavity, and we put a camera inside, and we're able to visualize the insides of the body of the abdominal cavity and manipulate them with really tiny long instruments. And it's kind of like playing a video game. You're watching this live on the screen as a surgeon, and you have your assistants, and typically as a medical student you're in charge of holding the camera for the surgical team, and that which is a great honor to be able to do that, once you're finally able to hold that camera. And
Yeah.
then you advance obviously as you become a surgeon, doing these kinds of procedures. But these, so the typically that that or recently, that operation, the sleeve, has become doable with a laparoscopic method, which means it's amazing. I mean, people walk in and out the very same day. It's ambulatory surgery, meaning you come in on the morning, you get the surgery done, you recover at the either hospital or ambulatory surgery center, and you walk home that very same night with a gastric sleeve, with the stomach being made into a tube or a sleeve, which is absolutely amazing, especially for me, since I've grown up, I've come up during this very time of this
Yeah.
tremendous development within surgery in all its aspects, in plastics, laparoscopic, bariatric surgery, which we were talking about. Now, on top of all that, but wait, there's more. The sleeve today is actually available in an even more minimally invasive way. Follow me now. Endoscopy. Endoscopy is a procedure that's done to check, let's say, if you have an ulcer in your stomach or
Yeah.
in your small intestine. It's a procedure where we put you well, not really to sleep like general anesthesia would be for surgeries, but we give you what's called sedation. We alter your sensorium, your connection to reality, and you kind of doze off, but you're not really asleep, in the sense of we're not necessarily breathing for you with an anesthesia machine. In endoscopy, that's a procedure that's been around for quite some time, but in the past years has been used as a diagnostic method, for example, to see if you have ulcers. But these days, obviously, with all the developments in biomedical technology, now we can take that endoscope and put it down through the mouth,
Hmm.
down the esophagus, that swallowing tube again, and get into the stomach, which is that pouch, and create that sleeve from the inside of the stomach. Right. I see you there, and I see, wait a minute. Yeah, it takes a little while to really conceptualize what we're doing here. So
So
imagine, about this. Your body essentially, there's one long tube between your mouth and the buttocks, right? And the anus. Sorry to use these terms, but it's one long tube. Now, when something goes in this tube, let's say you swallow a penny, the penny eventually would just come out the other end, right? So the penny ever really inside the body? You could argue both ways. It was inside the body in the sense of, yes, it's inside you and you're carrying it around. But if it goes inside the mouth and comes out the other end, it was never really inside the body. And that's the concept of endoscopy, where we're working inside the body, but technically it's outside of the body because we're within the stomach. So we can create that sleeve using minimally invasive methods. You didn't have surgery technically, you had an endoscopic procedure, and you can affect the same weight loss. So the sleeve comes in two forms these days. There's a surgical sleeve, which would be done by the bariatric surgeon,
Mm.
and there's an endoscopic sleeve, which would be done by the gastroenterologist. Either way, they can affect massive amounts of weight loss. And man, I'm telling you, we are in a revolution of weight loss and health restoration. It's amazing to see what's been going on under our very eyes as my career has been developing within this world. It's
Amazing.
amazing.
So basically, you're shrinking the stomach. That's kind of like the concept, but it's not really.
Exactly.
But and then it curves the hunger. It curves so you're not as hungry, so you're losing weight, right?
Correct.
Okay, got you. And this is a lifetime thing. Once you get this done, this stays in place for a lifetime?
The anatomical changes that we affect absolutely stay for a lifetime,
Wow.
unless there are certain things that we can do to kind of, to beat the effect of the weight loss. Now, remember, weight loss surgery and endoscopy, what we call the procedural weight loss, isn't something that we just say, okay, we get rid of the problem and that's that. It's different than in the sense of, let's say, cancer surgery.
Hmm.
In cancer surgery, let's say we're talking about breast cancer, the general surgeon would go in and extirpate the tumor, extirpate the cancer, just take the cancer out completely, make sure that there's no more cancer cells left behind, and the problem is effectively solved. In bariatric surgery and in bariatric endoscopy, which is surgery or procedures endoscopy for weight loss, we're also relying on the patient's behavior to affect the weight loss. So you have to play along. You got to play ball with the
Hmm.
sleeve, whether it's
Got
surgical or endoscopic. You can't just go around and start and involve yourself in all the old habits that
right.
were there that got you in trouble in the first place. And this is another topic. It's nice that we're kind of segueing into this segment of the conversation. Is that no matter what method you use for your weight loss, whether it's procedural like surgical or endoscopic, or
Mhm.
you're using some of the medications that are available today. We mentioned earlier, like Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy and Zepbound. Even if you're using those methods, you must always make sure that your health habits are improving. That's
Yeah.
to say, your caloric consumption and your energy expenditure. You got to watch what you eat. Forget about going on a diet. I hate diets personally. I don't know how you feel about them, but
Yeah.
anyone who's ever been on a diet has invariably failed with it, and
Yeah.
it's
It's just
it's
all about it's a lifestyle change. Just eat better. The
right,
diet
and
is temporary.
exactly. And that's what I want. What I always stress to my patients, that it's a lifestyle change. You have to change your mindset, your approach to the daily living, to the way that you consume calories and the way that you spend the energy that you get. We live in times of modernity. We live such a different life than even just our grandfather or our great grandfather. If you think of what
Yep.
they had to do to get food into the house and into their mouths,
Yeah.
if yeah, and if you think of the things that they had to do in their daily living in terms of the way that they would spend their energies, even just the elevators and escalators that we have, and the garage door openers that we have, and DoorDash and Uber Eats and all the other conveniences of modern life, our forefathers, are even just our great grandfather, they never had any of these amenities in their lives, and they reaped the benefits of that. They had a much more active lifestyle,
Yep.
and probably the nutrition was better. But this is what I tell people: you gotta change your mindset, your approach to life. That's the only way to beat obesity and maintain the best health for a lifetime.
Yeah, man, that's some knowledge right there, man. I wanna jump into what everybody's talking about. Everybody wants to know the BBL, the breast job, liposuction. Tell us, okay, for you, like when did it all start? When was that explosion of like the BBL and all the vanity cosmetic surgery and stuff like that? Tell us about that, and then go into some of the myths. I really want to know. I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now, but I really want to know about the dangers. Like, why have people? And I know you probably can't pinpoint why, but just overall, like, what can go wrong? I know people have passed away after surgery. I don't know if it was because maybe they weren't taking care of themselves. I don't know. I ain't getting into all that. But just speak to that, because I know there's people out there that want to do it and they hear about that and they don't do it, right? So just talk about that. The explosion of it, like when did that all come into play? What year was that and all that?
Let me handle those questions in reverse. I'll handle the complications and the potential mortality and all that first, and then we
Okay.
can get into the history,
Okay.
because it's very important, and I want people to get the right message from this. So
Okay.
yes, there is absolutely risk involved with surgery. Remember, cosmetic plastic surgery isn't surgery that you need; it's surgery that you want, which means that you, as the consumer of this kind of healthcare, which is elective after all, it behooves you, the consumer, which is the patient, to do your homework. You can choose what you want to do, where to do, when to do, with whom to do. So it's all up to you to do the right kind of homework and find out who it is that you're asking to do the procedures for you. So you've got to make sure the first step in seeking cosmetic plastic surgery is making sure that your surgeon is board certified, and not just board certified, but certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. What that means is that they've been educated and trained in all the aspects of reconstructive and cosmetic plastic surgery. The training is long and it's hard, and it's a very competitive field. It's very difficult to get into a plastic surgery fellowship after your general surgery residency, as I did, or there's other residencies that people go into plastic surgery from, for example, from orthopedics or from oral surgery, but that's a minority of the case. But either way, make sure that the person who's doing the cosmetic plastic surgery for you is certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. And it's as simple as asking that kind of a question. Just say, are you certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery? And if they are, they'll gladly smile and say, yes, I am. You can check it out on the website. You can call them up. No problem. It's there. And if they're not, well, they'll kind of, find a way to sound like I'm sounding right now and kind of skirt around the question and say, well, I'm certified by I'm a general surgeon and I do cosmetic surgery or this and that.
So let me ask
You
you this.
know,
Let me ask you this. If they're not certified by the American board, why are they in business? Why do they even get the opportunity to perform these procedures?
yeah, so that's a touchy kind of subject out there. Well, the fact is that when you get a license from any particular state, I have a license from several states, and you get a license to practice medicine and surgery. That's what it says on the license, and that includes just about everything and anything under the sun regarding the healthcare.
Okay.
Now, when you're working in a hospital, well, then there's a lot of kind of hoops that you got to jump through in order to make sure that you can get the privileges to perform the surgeries that you say you know how to do. And one of the ways that, let's say, a person who would be hiring you, and that would be the chairman of the Department of Surgery, and beyond that, they have to answer to their bosses in the administration of the hospital, of course. Well, they're going to want to see that you're certified by a recognized board. For example, you wouldn't get your coronary bypass or your open heart surgery from a gynecologist. You would want to know that that person, that surgeon, is certified by the American Board of Cardiothoracic Surgery, which is that's the appropriate surgery to get if you want to learn how to do open heart surgery.
Okay.
Now, there are other kinds of boards that have been out there that are not recognized by the appropriate authorities. And yeah, so people at times, unfortunately, some doctors, maybe for whatever pressures, maybe financial pressures, they'd be pressured to do other what they would see as more lucrative practices in medicine than what they're doing right now. Let's say a gynecologist would see that, hey, my buddy's doing liposuction, and I deal with patients all the time, and I do surgery as well, and why not just go and do it? And then they'd get some training and get a certification by the American Board of Cosmetic Surgery, for example, which is not a recognized board for performance of this kind of surgery, and they'd be doing that surgery. And don't get me wrong, I have plenty of friends who are cosmetic surgeons, and some of them are pretty darn good at what they do. But the bottom line is, as a consumer, what I would tell my friends and my family, if they were interested in getting cosmetic plastic surgery, I'd say only get a board certified plastic surgeon, as we said, someone who's certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. That's the only way what kind of education and training level that they had. You know that they've undergone the appropriate residency and fellowship training that you need to be able to even apply for taking this examination. When people say when I say I'm a board certified plastic surgeon, it's a series of examinations that I had to take. And those examinations I was only eligible for because of the training that I received, which again, as I said earlier, was long and hard. It was, darn near a decade after medical school, in the operating room, and in the operating rooms, just running around from hospital to hospital and taking care of so many patients and countless medical problems that a plastic surgeon would be able to handle. So that's what I'd recommend first and foremost for anyone seeking cosmetic plastic surgery. Look for a board certified plastic surgeon. Now, beyond that, okay, you got to go to an expert. You got to go to someone who knows what they're doing. If you want a BBL, okay, go to someone who's done hundreds, if not a couple of thousands of BBLs. If you want a cosmetic breast surgery, augmentation, lift, or a combination of anything in between, go to someone who can show you on their website, on their social media, hundreds, if not, again, thousands of cases. You always want to make sure that you're going to someone who's not only got the basics of the education and training that you need, but also has the expertise. And expertise comes with experience. I tell patients that, listen, you got to be able to, any plastic surgery consultation that you go to, you should be able to ask the surgeon, hey, can you show me how many tummy tucks have you done? Can you show me how many did you do last week, last month, last year? Now, I love getting asked this question because I pull out my iPad or my phone, and in my HIPAA protected, password protected files, of course, I just pull up and I show them, okay, what do we want to see? Do we want to see a tummy tuck, an extended tummy tuck? Let me see you one where I fixed an umbilical hernia. Let me show you a body lift. Let me show you an arm lift and a thigh lift. Let me show you how many I did last week. Let me show you how many I did last month. And with that kind of experience, with those kinds of numbers, and you're able to show the patient that you, in fact, know how to do your business. You know how to handle any problems that can come along from doing these kinds of surgeries, and that you're the right guy for the job. And if you get that kind of experience when you're consulting with a plastic surgeon, the basics are there, the expertise, the experience is there, and just as important, whether you like that person, can you work with them? Can you manage the issues that may inevitably come along in the post-operative recovery? Oftentimes, my patients, I end up doing several surgeries on them just because there's so much to do in the wake of, again, the weight loss, or sometimes there's issues of previous surgery results that I'd have to be that I'm called upon to fix. And I develop relationships with my patients. I love to actually be part of their health journey in their lives. And I think that's something that you got to support as a patient. If you have all those basics down, that's the right person for the job. And I bet you're going to have a great outcome. And even if you have any complications, you can manage them. You can take care of them and get to satisfactory, and not just that, but amazing results. Man, the cosmetic changes that we can get out there. Sometimes I'm flipping through my Instagram or the TikTok, because I'm a very busy guy. I end up doing a lot, and I end up actually doing a lot of content also, which I have a team of people helping me. Thank God.
Yeah.
To edit and get it all together, to organize it, because it's such a hectic practice with my patient care and the patient education that I love to do online in putting out these videos, because that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah.
So It's it's a lot of stuff to do out there. And this is what I tell patients: you gotta do your homework in order to be safe and to make sure that the outcomes you're going to get are what you expect. Now, I think that probably answers the question in regards to, but the complications and the issues that can arise. And yes, of course, there have been mortality, but the vast majority of cases in mortality in plastic surgery you can really trace back to poor care, poor design, not noticing, the problems that should have been noticed beforehand, taking patients to the operating room that weren't ready for a particular procedure, or weren't, in the proper medical condition.
Yeah,
There's
say like
lots.
pre-existing things that they have
Right.
going on, right? Yeah.
Right, and maybe even poor technique by physicians. That's something that's been a glaring issue actually in the BBL mortalities that people talked about. So those are the kind of things that you obviously, there are things that you can control, and unfortunately, obviously, there are things that you cannot control. But thankfully, those things are really, really rare in the hands of good, conscientious, and compassionate surgeons. The vast majority of patients get great outcomes. And like I said, plastic surgery on the whole, we get great results for our patients. And it's not just me, my colleagues in the field. I'm telling you, so many of us are so proud of the work that we do. And yes, it's not perfect. And and we always have to warn our patients. We go through the informed consent process where we discuss the benefits, of course, but the complications, the risk factors, and not only that, but the alternatives to the different solutions that we offer to our patients. So again, you got to do your homework, and if you do that, you can get great results from plastic surgery. Now, getting into the history, which is where I wanted to
Yeah,
get
talk
into
about the
the
explosion.
later side of things, and
Like
more fun to talk.
how did business change for you, like the industry, everything when all this just started, rushing in with the whole BBL and all that stuff with the culture.
Wow, I'll tell you, yeah, it kind of it just blew up. I think one of the big factors that contributed to the growth and the tremendous growth of plastic surgery, including BBL and cosmetic breast surgery and tummy tucks and all that, is the development of social media. When Facebook came around, and eventually Instagram and TikTok, and
Yeah.
not just that, but the websites in general, the internet just became such an amazing portal for communication between doctors and potential patients. And for good and for bad, it is what it is, and here we are. And a lot of my practice developed immensely from during that time where Instagram was coming up. And it's funny, I never learned how to make any videos when I was in medical school or in residency, for that matter. It just wasn't around. And I go back to the really the days of the internet as it kind of became a thing in our lives. I remember those days, and I remember being an adult in those days. I famously brag about writing my first email in medical school. It was actually called CC mail, and it wasn't to the worldwide. It wasn't in the World Wide Web. It was in a little community within the medical school, within the students and professors, and
Right.
so forth. And who knew back in those days that when I'd be, a few decades later, I may be dancing on TikTok with patients of mine, or and that's just some of the fun stuff that the kids in the office love to make me do that. But much more so than that, who thought that I'd be able to do a live session on Instagram where my potential patients and former patients get on live and ask me questions and interact with me in real time, and ask questions, and I get a chance to talk about what it is that I love to do for a living, which is changing people's lives and helping them look and feel their best. It's just an amazing thing to have lived through, to have seen kind of happen, as I said, right in front of my eyes, under my nose, right here. And I think, as I said earlier, for good and for bad, and there's plenty bad to talk about, but I like to focus on the positive in life. The glass is always half full for me. I think on the whole, the advent of social media has done tremendous things for plastic surgery. And if we use it right, if we use it in the correct way, I think we can keep benefiting into the future to improve our lives, to improve the quality of our lives to improve the way that we interact with our bodies, the way we interact with caregivers in our in our world, doctors, nurses. Plastic surgery is here to stay, and it's and, I always say it's the most visual of all fields.
Yeah.
Plastic surgery has probably benefited more from social media, from being able to share pictures and videos and live conversations. I do live consults online with FaceTime, with obviously all HIPAA protected, of course,
Yeah.
and on Zoom calls. I do that, and it's amazing how how much information people are able to get, and the consequence is that yeah, my practice has exploded. The amount of patients I see is tremendous. It's hard to keep up. I'm booked out for several months ahead. And not just that, but I'm able to communicate with so many people. I'm able to share my knowledge, my experience, and the proof is in the pudding. I got patients coming to see me from everywhere. I kind of talk about me being an area code expert. I can look at your area code on your phone and probably know where you're from, maybe even
Wow.
down to the city you're from. I memorized all the Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Detroit, Cleveland,
That's
Columbus.
crazy.
But not just that. Now people are coming from Canada, the islands, Bahamas, Wisconsin,
Wow.
from South America, Europe, the Middle East. I've
How
gotten a
many
chance
you?
to operate all over the world. It's just it's a joy, and I'm telling you, the growth of plastic surgery is tremendous, and there's more to come. That's the funny thing. We're probably at the tip of the iceberg right now. Who knows what's ahead of us in the future?
How many surgeries do you perform a week on average?
Let's say, well, it all depends. Well, I'm in the operating room basically every day. I mean, my operating room is fully functional. I operate in a practice called Miami Life. We're in the heart of Miami in a neighborhood called Sunset. It's sort of a doctor's row. There's a bunch of doctors' offices in that area. It's very
Okay.
convenient. We're actually located very close to the airport. As I said, a large portion of my patient population, they come from all over the world, and and I get a lot of locals as well, of course. And in that practice, it's a fully accredited ambulatory surgery center, which means I have, basically the operating room. It looks exactly like what you would see in the hospital. I can, operate there any day of the week. I have my anesthesia team, my medical team that helps me assess all the patients. We take a look at every patient individually, and yeah, and we go to work. So it all depends on what day it is, and obviously I have to fit in patient care within there. I
Right.
see all of my patients pre-operatively. A lot of times I meet them even online before that, or we meet on phone calls, and so many of my patients, they've learned so much already about what they want to get done. They know, they come to me, and I got to tell you, my patients are so smart. And they are so discerning because they've done so much research, not only about me and my credentials, my education, but in general about BBLs and tummy tucks. And yes, there's a lot of misinformation out there that I do have to correct and kind of tweak with people. But on the whole, people know so much because the ones who really want to get this kind of work done, they do their homework. They find out so many different things, and they're so much smarter about the healthcare that they get. So for me, I operate basically every day. It all depends on how many cases are there. I could do a few tummy tucks in a day. I got energy for days. I don't get tired.
Wow.
Going back to that quote that I used in the beginning. I love what I do, and people are often amazed. They ask me about, well, how do you get the energy, doc? I operate sometimes even into a little bit later in the evening, and they say, doc, you look so fresh, and like, well, what do you do? What's your secret? And I'll tell you what the secret is I'm high on life. I just love what I do,
Yeah.
and it's such a
Yeah.
it's a privilege. And I tell my patients, it's the patients always thank me so much, and I flip the script. I thank my patients, and I tell them it's my honor to be your doctor. It's such a joy for me to be able to do what I do for a living. And yes, it's tiring. It's a stressful job, that's for sure. It's very difficult to do, but I do it with joy. I do it with passion and with a purpose, and it's just fun all around. So I could be in the OR all day and I'm tired, and a few cases into it, but somehow or other, I always manage to go back home with a smile. So
Yeah. That's
you
dope,
know,
man. I
maybe a
got
little bit off the question of how many surgeries and all that stuff, but I tell you what, it doesn't matter because I'm having fun out there, and it's always a pleasure to do what I do.
I can tell. I can tell you love what you do. All right, before we get out of here, I just want to know, is there Any okay, when done correctly by a board certified plastic surgeon, are there any negative effects on the body from getting something like a BBL? And is there like just a lifelong, you're living with it? Is there any type of maintenance or anything you need to do to upkeep it, or is it just it's there and you live your life, and if you're working out and exercising and eating good, you're good?
Yeah, so sometimes people talk about BBL. Let's just kind of make sure everyone in the audience knows BBL stands for Brazilian butt lift. Now, there's a whole big long story of how it got that name. It's not exclusively in Brazil, and people would argue, where it was actually done first. Could it be American butt lift? But regardless, what it means essentially is transferring fat from from some areas in the body, let's say where it's unwanted, let's say the abdomen, the arms, the thighs, into an area where it is wanted, into the buttocks, hips, and to create that buttock appearance. So BBL is typically fat transfer to the buttocks, but we also do fat transfer to the breasts and other locations as well. And people love to talk about feeding the fat. Now I'm still trying to figure out what feeding the fat means, because it's one of those internet meme kind of things that yeah, I understand what people want to say by that, but it's not really as accurate as people would kind of, or as the statement would kind of make you believe. Um, as far as the maintenance is concerned, yeah, it goes back to the issue that I was mentioning before. I always ask my patients, no matter what you do, what surgery you do, whether it's a BBL or a tummy tuck or a thigh lift, you have to make sure that you are at your best. I ask people to be at their best before surgery, and to come to me with that, with a purpose, because I want them to be as ready as they could be for that surgery in terms of a physiological condition, but also because I know that if they've done everything they can in the within their lives before the surgery, likely they're going to do the same thing afterwards, right? So that means watching what you eat, and not necessarily, as we said, going on a diet, but getting your energy consumption, your caloric consumption needs met in the appropriate way. Changing your dietary intake habits so that you're eating healthier and not just eating less, or cabbage for 2 weeks or meat for a month. It's not about that. It's about finding the right way, biohacking your caloric consumption needs and seeing what works best with your body. That's on that side. Now, on the energy expenditure side, I tell people, yes, of course, you got to be active. You have to live a healthy, active lifestyle. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean necessarily doing any one exercise or the other. If you ask me what's the best exercise out there, it's the one that you end up loving and doing and wanting to do for the rest of your life, of course.
Right.
For me, I got my things that I love to do. I love to do jujitsu and calisthenics and swimming and just being active in the general sense through my day. Obviously, I'm always running around. My patients see me always in and out of the operating room, of course. So I spend lots of calories during my daily events. But if you don't have a chance to do that, you got to find ways to do that, because man, the cards are stacked against us out there. The junk food is everywhere. The
Um,
sedentary lifestyle is so easy to live. Like we said earlier, DoorDash and Uber Eats
yeah.
and Amazon, everything just comes to us. We don't even have to walk up and down the stairs anymore. So you have to make sure that the maintenance phase after plastic surgery is on point. If you got that game going on, if you have that framework, that you've changed that mindset into
Yeah.
better, healthier lifestyle, then there you go. I can't ask for anything more from any of my patients. And I'll tell you, the thing I mentioned this earlier about obesity touching mental health, that aspect of it, and it's something that I have to stress, not only for the patients listening in the audience, but if there are any doctors, if there are any nurses, healthcare professionals, and even people just involved in caring for people in terms of physical therapists, psychologists, people who deal with people who are dealing with adversity. Dealing with weight issues is one of the biggest struggles that people will face in their lifetimes, especially in the modern world. We live in America. God bless. There are many problems in life, but the problems that so many people have to deal with their body, the one commodity they come to planet Earth with, and the
Yep.
one thing they get to leave with, right? It's such a struggle
Oh,
for so many. As healthcare professionals, we got to do what it takes to help and support our, to felt our fellow humans, people who are dealing with these issues. We got to help them out. So many people will end up losing weight and then gaining it back, and doing this kind of roller coaster life with the weight. We have to be able to help them out and let them know that they're not alone. We're here to help them, achieve their goals. There are so many ways to lose weight, to improve your health habits, to improve your physical condition in life, and that ultimately helps you so much with your mental health and well-being. So it's up to us. I'm doing my part out here, and I'm loving it as I'm doing it. But I appreciate, by the way, and I appreciate you bringing me along on the podcast here. This is part of the effort as well, letting people know that there's no shame in not being in your healthiest body. You
Yeah.
gotta take control of your life, and I offer everyone the encouragement, the inspiration, whatever motivation you can take from talking with me. Go ahead, take it. It's free. I don't charge for any of that. And I wish you nothing. I wish everybody watching the podcast here, I wish them nothing but the best in achieving their health habits. And yeah, and if I could be part of that journey for anyone, that's it will be my privilege, my honor. And I appreciate you, KoolKard, for bringing me on here to talk about these issues, because I definitely think it's super important, and especially as we're coming up in the next few years, we got to stay healthy out there.
Absolutely. Listen, I got one last question though. I said that was the last, but I got one last question that I know everybody wants to know. Please answer this question. What is okay? What determines if the BBL looks natural, or you have these women who have these stick legs and you got this big old bubble coming out and it just does not look good? Is that because of preference, or is that a bad butt job?
Uh, it's a bad butt job. That's a short answer. I'll tell you a little of this, and I know we got to run, but then you got to. But let's, if it's truly the last question, which go ahead, ask
Give it
for if
to
you want.
me.
But
Give
I'll
it to
tell you,
me.
I'll
I
tell you
need to
this.
know.
Sometimes my wife and I, we take a trip down to Miami Beach, get some gelato for the kids, and we're just sitting there, and invariably, a young lady walks by, and my wife looks at me, and she goes, "Oh my God!" She goes, "Danny, is that yours?" And I said, "Well, first of all, patient privacy. If it was, I wouldn't tell you, of course.
Right.
But I tell her, look, if it is mine, I did it because the patient wanted it that way. That if you want to please the patient here, and you want to not judge, and you want to be accommodating, and you want to do what's best in the aesthetic eyes of the patient,
Right.
of course. And yes, you can contribute in there. And people often ask me that, Doc, what do you think looks good? And obviously they ask for opinions, and many times they even just tell me, Doc, you know what you're doing. I've seen your work. I love your work. Just do what you got to do, which is great as well. And then I obviously always involve them in the plan. But people ask for what they want, and as plastic surgeons, we want to do what makes the patients happy. And obviously every plastic surgeon has a moral conscience themselves. If they feel like something is not right, or if they don't want to do it, they can say no. I've said no to plenty of patients for different reasons, of course, but that's always the prerogative of the surgeon. And good on us for being able to do that. It's a voluntary interaction after all. Now, having said all that, 5 minutes later, sure enough, another young lady walks by, and then my wife looks at her and says, "Wow, Danny, did she get it? Is that a BBL, or is that natural?" To which I say, "Aha, you see." Now I'm not sure if it is or it isn't a BBL, and 99% of the time, obviously, I can tell. Every now and then, I can be fooled as
Yeah.
well. But what I say to my wife is, whether it is or it isn't, and if it is, the surgeon did a darn good job,
Yeah.
because you're not sure, and it comes out natural and elegant and curvaceous, and it adds to the physique of the patient. And I like to always tell my patients when they ask me, well, what kind of BBL would you prefer? As I said, they oftentimes kind of leave it in my hands and say, you make it look, you make it look great. I just wanted you to do your magic, do your artwork. And for me, I like a more natural look, of course. And I always involve the patient in terms of getting their kind of input on it, and I never do anything that is just for my aesthetic. But that's what we want. We want to make sure that we're doing something that's the one word that I always use is harmonious,
Mm.
because I want to create harmony within your physique. I don't want to create something that, as my wife had that interaction or that reaction, would go, oh my God, what is that? We always want to create something that people would look at and say, wow, that really looks good. Look at that form of that body. It looks healthy. It looks athletic. It looks contoured. Those are the kinds of adjectives we'd want people to describe our work as, rather than, oh my God, look at that. That looks a little much, a little grotesque, a little exaggerated, or whatever, other pejorative you want to use. But yeah, listen, there's all kinds of BBLs out there, and I try to avoid what you mentioned out there, the stick legs and the big,
Yeah.
the bombastic buttocks. There's
Yeah.
the ant look, they call it, the diaper look. I'll tell you, the internet is a place where mean people live, man. And none of these terms I knew before.
Jesus.
My patients kind of told
Diaper.
me about them, and every consult, it seems like I learn. I think I've heard all the different names for the different body parts that people describe their body parts, and it's always good to have a sense of humor. And I
Yeah.
tell people sometimes, I'm like, oh, you can't embarrass me anymore in the room. I've heard every name out there in the book, and sure enough, they come up with something different and creative. And if we're we have to be able to kind of be a little self-deprecating, to laugh at ourselves, and to when you're having fun, which I often do with my patients. So many of my patients have a good sense of humor about the whole situation. Even though it's a very serious topic, like we mentioned earlier, all the adversity that people have to overcome. I like to always focus on the positive and make people feel comfortable. And sometimes when there's a little bit of humor in the consultation, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, we try. Listen, back to the BBL issue. I always try to make it look curvy, elegant,
Yeah.
harmonious with your body, and that's what I think is the best aesthetic.
Okay, I still got one more question.
Yeah, I told
But
you I
listen,
do it.
look, we can keep this short and simple though. I just got one question,
Sure.
and I hate to use this analogy, but is it like the build a bear process? Like, okay, if they say I want this size, are you removing fat here, putting it in? Like, okay, that looks about right, or no, I need a little bit more, and you put more in, or no, that looks too big, you take it out. Is that how it? Is that the process? And you don't have to be long
So
on
it's
that. Just
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, it's a simplified way to look at it, but in essence, in many ways, yes, and in some ways, no. So there are things that we can do. There are things we cannot do. Obviously, there's always the physiological and anatomical limits that are set for us by the patient, for and for reasons that they can or cannot control, of course. And it is very similar to sculpting, just doing a general sculpting, in the sense of adding here and taking away there. We used to do it a lot by subtraction, meaning, let's say, like a tummy tuck or an arm lift, where we would remove all of the unwanted skin and fatty tissue there. With liposuction, we do very much the same. But these days, we're a lot not just subtractive, but additive. We
yeah,
add in terms of fat grafting that we do to the buttocks, to the breast, to the face, to other areas in the body as well. We also do plenty of flap surgery, where we move tissues from one place to another for one reason or another, to either augment an area or to supply coverage with various kinds of tissues. Again, this gets into a lot of the reconstructive elements out there. So, the answer to the question is yes. Plastic surgery is very much like sculpting. It's live human body sculpting. I like to tell my patients, and I've said this for many years already. Plastic surgery is the ultimate culmination of science and art. Two of my favorite endeavors as a young child, coming up through the education
yeah,
systems that I've gone through. Science is because all of this is based on the scientific endeavor. We stand on the shoulders of giants. A plastic surgeon will have gone through so many of the scientific disciplines out there, starting obviously from elementary basic sciences in math, but eventually you get into biology and chemistry and biochemistry, and then in medical school you start learning anatomy and physiology and histology, and then pharmacology and microbiology and all the different disciplines that make a complete doctor. And
yeah,
then beyond that, you have to learn the aesthetic appeal in terms of how the body, the form and the function of the body interact together. And that is a, that involves detailed studies of anatomy and understanding of how the body works as a whole. Now, when you combine those with, you combine that scientific element and that artistic sense, you get plastic surgery right there. I say that I've said this to my wife a bunch of times, and very much recently, because I think it's I'm getting older here and I'm getting more reflective every day, and I'm saying to myself, wow, what a lucky guy I am to be able to bring these two disciplines in my life, to do art and science together, and through that combination be able to help people out in terms of their overall health, in
Yeah.
helping them live a healthier, better life, and ultimately helping them with their mental health and their sanity. What a privilege, what an honor. I should wish this on everybody. This is
Absolutely.
stuff to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
plastic surgery, it's like human sculpting. It's fun, it's great.
Well,
I could talk about this for hours, as you could
no,
tell.
I'm glad you're able to explain it like that, because a lot of people don't look at it like that. Like, it is absolutely helping people out. It's helping people's life journey out. All of that mental health, like you said, physiology, all of that. So thank you for going in depth, in detail. I love it, man. I appreciate you
My
coming
pleasure.
on the show. Yeah, and this might not be the last time you come on. I might invite you back, man, and we can talk forever on it. You know what I'm saying? So
Would
yeah,
love it. Would love it. When whatever questions people have, yeah, sure. I go
yeah.
on. Listen, I go on. On live all the time, and I love to talk about it. So anytime, yeah, if you want to bring me back on, let me know. Give me the heads up, and I'm
All
there.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Listen, board certified plastic surgeon, Dr. Daniel Kaufman. You know where I'm at every Tuesday night, kicking it with someone cool like this man here, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys for tuning in. Always appreciate you guys. If you watch it live or you watch it on the replay, it's all love. Thank you so much. Dr. Daniel, it's been a blessing. Thank you so much, sir. Very,
Thank
very
you so much. Much obliged.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys, we are out of here. Until next time, we are kicking it and we have kicked it. Let's go.